Hey, you guys. All right, so I'm going to do the next chapter, which is Heading North. And I have my book right here. Yeah, there's my stash behind me. There's tissues, there's cheese balls. So I'm in the living room. And Brian's sleeping. Do you want to see him sleep? And let me show you my buddy Banks. You see him? Yeah, there he is. Okay, so let's see what's happening. We didn't know a thing. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what we was going to eat when the apples and potatoes ran out. We didn't know where we was going to sleep that night. If we reached the north, we didn't know if we was going to stay together or separate. We had never thought about nothing like this because we had never thought we was ever going to be free. Yes, we'd heard about freedom. We'd even talked about freedom, but we never thought we was ever going to see that day. Even when we know the Yankees had come in the state, even when we saw them marching by the gate, we still didn't feel we was ever going to be free. That's why we hadn't got ourselves ready. When word came down that we was free, we dropped everything and started out. It was hot. Must have been May or June, probably. Probably June, but I'm not sure. We went across the cotton path toward the swamps. The young men and boys started breaking down cotton stalks just to show old master what they thought of him and his old slavery. Somebody hollered that they better use their strength to get some corn, and we all shot out for corn patch across the field. Now, when we came up to the swamps, nobody wanted to take the lead. Nobody wanted to be the one blamed for getting everybody else lost. All us just standing there, fumbling around, waiting for somebody else to take charge. When somebody in the back said, "Move out of the way," I looked, and there was Big Laura. She was big, just like her name say, and she was tough as any man. She was as tough as any man I ever seen. She could plow, chop wood, cut, and load much cane as any man on that place. She had 2 children, one in her arms, a little girl, and she was leading Ned by the hand. "Don't worry, I'll come to Ned later." Yes, Lord, I'll come to him later. But even with them 2 children, she had the biggest bundle out there balanced on her head. Big Laura took the lead, and we started walking again. Walking fast, but staying quiet. Somebody said we ought to get sticks just in case of snakes, so we all hunted for a good green stick. Now everybody had a stick but Big Laura. She leading the way with the little girl in her arms and Ned by the hand. She had found us a good clean path, and it was cool under the trees, and everybody was happy. We walked and walked and walked, almost sundown before we stopped for the first time. "We headed toward Ohio?" I asked. "You got somebody waiting for you in Ohio?" they asked me. "Mr. Brown told me to look him up," I said. Nobody believed Mr. Brown had told me that, but they didn't say nothing. "I want to go to Ohio," I said. "Go on to Ohio," one of them said. "Nobody holding you back." "I don't know the way," I said. "Then shut up," one of them said. "Y'all just sorry you all ain't got nobody waiting for you nowhere," I said. Nobody said nothing. I was little, and they didn't feel the need to argue with me. We was in a thicket of sycamore trees, and it was quiet and clean here. We had a little breeze. Because way up in the top of the trees, hold on, I'm going to move the book. Because way up on the top of the trees, I could see the limbs sagging just a little. Everybody was tired from the long walk, and we just sat there quiet, not saying a thing for a good while. Then somebody said, "My new name?" Abe Washington. Don't call me Buck no more. We must have been 2 dozen of us there, and now everybody started changing names like you change hats. Nobody was keeping the same name old master had given them. This one would say, "My new name, Cam Lincoln." That one would say, "My new name, Ace Freeman." Another one, "My new name, Sherman S. Sherman." What's the S for? My title. Another one would say, "My new name, Job." Job what? Just Job. Nigger, this ain't slavery no more. You got to have 2 names, Job Lincoln then. You ain't no kin to me. I'm Lincoln. I don't care. I'm still Job Lincoln. Want to fight? Another one would say, "My name, Nehemiah King." Another one standing by a tree would say, "My new name, Bill Moses. No more Rufus." They went on and on like that. We had one slow-wit fella there who kept on opening his mouth to say his new name. But before he could get it out, somebody else had just said a name. He was just opening and closing his mouth like a baby after his mama's titty. Then all of a sudden, when he had a little time to speak, he said, "Brown." They had took all the other names from him, so he took Brown. I had been sitting there on the end of a log listening to them squabbling over new names. But I didn't have to get into the squabbling because I already had a new name. I had mine for over a year now, and I'd put up with a lot of trouble to hold on to it. But when I heard that slow-wit say his name was Brown, I was ready to fight. I jumped up off that log and I went for him. "No, you don't," I said. He said, I can be brown if I want to be brown." He was picking on me because I was small, and I didn't have nobody to stand up for me. "You're not the only one around here that could be brown," he said. "Mess round here with me, I make you change your name back to Dicey." "I'll die first," I said. Go right on and die," he said. "Brown, my name." And I tried to crack his head open with that stick, but I didn't bit more hurt that loon than I could hurt that post at the end of the gallery. He came on me, and I swung the stick and backed from him. He kept coming on me, and I kept hitting him back and back, hitting him back and back. And then he jerked the stick out of my hand and swung it away. I tried to get the stick, but I fell. And when I looked up, there he was, right over me. He didn't look like a man now. He didn't even look like a loon. He looked more like a wild animal like greed in his face. He grabbed me and started with me in the bushes. But we hadn't gone more than 3 or 4 steps when I started hearing this noise. Whoop, whoop, whoop. I didn't know what that noise was. I was too busy trying to get away from that loon to think that noise had anything to do with me or him. I heard that noise again. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Every time it hit now, I saw the hurt in Slow-Wit's face. He was still heading with me in the bushes, but every time the noise hit, I could see the hurt in his face. Then I saw the stick come down on his shoulder, and this time he swung around. Big Laura had the stick cocked back to hit him again. "Drop her, you stud dog," she said. "Drop her or I'll break your neck." He let me slide out of his arms, just standing there looking at Big Laura like he was wondering why she had hit him. I tried to get the stick away from Big Laura so I can get another crack at him, but she pushed him to the side. "Go back to the plantation," she said. "Go back there. That's where you do your studying." "No," he said. Top of the next page. "I say, get out of here," she said, ready to hit him. "No," he said, because he was a slow wit and wouldn't know where to go by himself. Big Laura hit him on the side with the stick. She hit him twice on the side, but all he did was cover his head and cried. He was a slow wit and couldn't look after himself. All he could do was do what he was told, what you told him to do. You got just one more time to try your studding around here, Big Laura told him. Just one more time and I'll kill you. She looked at everybody there. That go for the rest of you all, she said. You free, then you're going to act like free men. If you want to act like you did on the plantation, turn around now and go back to the plantation. Nobody said a thing. Most of them looked down at the ground. Big Laura went back to her children, and I went back and sat down on the log. The Slowwit stood over there, crying and slobbering on himself. The sun went down, and we found the North Star. Big Laura put her bundle on her head, and then she took the little girl in her arms and Ned by the hand, and we started walking again. We walked and walked and walked and walked. Lord, we walked. I got so tired, I wanted to drop. Some of the people started grumbling and hanging back, but they didn't know where else to turn, and they soon caught up. Big Laura never stopped and never looked around to see who was following. That little girl clutched in her arms, Ned by her hand. She moved through them trees like she knew exactly where she was going and wasn't going to let nothing in the world get in her way. We went on till way up in the night before we stopped to sleep. Big Laura dropped her bundle on the ground and she sat the children beside it. She took everything out of the bundle and spread the dress out so the children could have a pallet to lay on. Then she dug a hole in the ground and filled it with leaves and dry moss. She stuck a little piece of lint cotton under the moss and leaves and started scraping a piece of flint and iron together near the cotton. And remember, flint and iron is necessary because that's how you can make a fire. Okay, so remember that because we're going to hear about it again. Soon she had made a fire and she covered the fire with green moss to get smoke. She sat down by the pallet and waved her hand over the children in case mosquitoes broke through the screen. The rest of the people closed in and stayed quiet, and you heard nothing but the swamps. Crickets, frogs, an owl in a tree somewhere. You can go to sleep, I told Big Laura. I'll keep mosquitoes off the children. Sleep yourself, she said. You're going to need all the strength you have to reach Ohio. That was all I needed to hear. The next minute, I was snoring. So, one of the things I want to make clear with you in heading north is that when the Slowwit was arguing with Jane, he also was like pushing her into the bushes. And based on what he's doing, like how he's pushing her, and she says things like he was on top of me. And then you hear Laura say to him, you know, if you want to act like that, go back to the plantation, you stud dog. And so we understand that to mean that the Slowwit was used for breeding purposes. And so they would mate him so that they could get more slaves without having to purchase more slaves. And so, although it doesn't come right out and tell us that he's trying to rape Jane, he may not realize it's rape because that's what he's trying to do. But we understand it as that he's trying to rape her. And so we keep that in the back of our mind. So sometimes when we're reading these chapters, we have to look at the words that Ernest Gaines uses and the way he uses them to sort of understand it just a little deeper too. Okay? So I want you to journal a few things. There's, she talks about everybody changing their name, and their names were given to them by their slave masters. And so you might even think about maybe what makes your name important, right? And maybe even if you go by a nickname, is that more meaningful to you because it's an endearing name that people call you. So that's something you could write about. You could write about Big Laura. I'm not sure what else. Maybe you could write about a time when you wanted to go somewhere and you didn't know how to get there. And what did you do? You could think about that too. So our next chapter is Massacre, and that's a really good chapter. I think it's one of the most violent chapters, and I'll try to also read it not very fast so that you can understand it. Okay, go do your journaling.